Hello and welcome back to Up the Villa podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Kieran from Oak Road Hatter, Luton fan. How are you, mate?
Doing well, son. Doing well. How about you?
Yeah, really good, mate. So, for Villa fans, talk to me about the journey of Luton Town because it has been a massive journey. And to be fair, you're actually out of the relegation zone, so the journey might have an even happier ending come the end of this season. So just talk to us, like, where have you been? Where have you come from?
It's just been an absolute roller coaster. Like, I'm sure a lot of Premier League fans have sort of become accustomed to what we've been through, say, the last 10, 15 years, from going from championship to non-league in 4 years to then coming all the way back up and then eclipsing that and getting into the promised land. And it's been mental to think that sort of through the early 2010s, we were going to Welling, Salisbury, Kidderminster, Grays Athletic, all these random teams, some in like the arse end of nowhere, right? And now we've come up and we were playing your Wimbledons and your Leighton Orients, and then we were playing your Charltons, and then we were playing your Sunderlands, and now we're back up here playing Villa, Chelsea, Man United, and it is absolutely incredible.
How's it been in the Premier League so far? Because I can imagine that there would have been a lot of excitement at the start before you even kicked a ball. But when you get into it and start playing games, it becomes quite relentless. And we knew from when we got promoted, and you don't really think of how difficult it actually is until you get back in it. So how are you finding it now as a fan? Now you're in it, are you still enjoying it, or are you starting to sort of like look at other teams' results, thinking, okay, we've got a good chance here?
I think you described it perfectly there, like relentless it is, and it's ruthless as well. Like, you think, even though I wrote off sort of our first 3 to 4 games, it mentally in my head is like, we'd probably lose them anyway, just for that simple adjustment period, right? But even going away to Brighton and getting beaten 4-1, but like not just getting beaten 4-1, but basically being dismantled in front of your eyes, and you're like, oh, that's like the levels we're up against now. And same with Chelsea, who haven't had a great season so far, picked us apart, and we're like, okay, great. And it starts to be like, when does this start becoming fun? Because currently this isn't fun. And then you get to a game like Nottingham Forest on the weekend. You went 2-0 down, but then we changed things around, made a couple of subs, and all of a sudden we looked like the better side, and we pulled the 2 goals back and had our sort of last minute equaliser. And you get moments like that. Any fan knows, like 90+3, 90+4, scoring a goal there is just pandemonium in that away end. And then it was sort of, you have moments like that where you realise, all right, this is why we're here. This is what we're going to get out of this season, so say.
Yeah, and it was a fantastic result at the weekend. Another game that I felt like you were so unlucky in was Burnley at home. All second half, you're the best team that second half, and you get the goal, and you're thinking, right, they're going to win it here. And then they just go down the other end of the pitch and sort of score this kind of a worldy goal. And you're just like,
Yeah.
how has that just happened? So, yeah, like you're saying, it's relentless. But, you're currently outside the relegation zone. You got 5 points. For me, when I'm looking at sort of the scenario that you're in, I think it's perfect at the minute. You want to be in the mix with 4 or 5 teams that are fighting and scrapping away. And at the minute, I think you're doing a pretty decent job, to be fair. So talk to me about Luton's style of play. Has it changed from the Championship, or is it similar to what you've always been playing?
It's in the Championship, we were quite direct, like under Nathan Jones at first anyway. Started the season quite direct. Love the use of fullbacks. Like, we've always been a 5-back for the last 18 months to 2 years. We started the season like that, sort of sticking to what we know, as it were. And then it became quite apparent that it was almost like a one-trick pony. And in the Prem, you can't be this team that has a style. Like in the Championship and throughout the EFL, if you have a style and it works, you can get away with that. In the Prem, you can't. You need to have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, right? Whereas now we're starting to see us sort of shift to a 4 at the back. Like when we changed the game at Forest, you could argue it's a 4-2-3-1. I'd personally say it's way more to 4-4-2, which was mental to even think that we were playing 4-4-2 in the Premier League. But it's just having that plan B. And now I think we're being respected a little bit more. At first, it was easy to assume that Luton would just be this sort of battering voice for everyone, right? Whereas now, I mean, teams are starting to show us a lot more respect, especially you look at performances like at Tottenham. Yeah, we lost 1-0, but we only lost 1-0. And arguably, we could have had 2 goals. You think of one that got disallowed, you look at Eli's blunder of a miss. It's fine margins, is how I describe
Yeah.
this league so far. But I think our style of play works in our favour now compared to, say, 7 games ago.
Yeah, and I've been really impressed with Lockyer. I think, he was a player that when I was watching you in the Championship, I was impressed with. And he's quite integral for me watching Luton for you to do well this season. And I think he's kind of adapted and he looks pretty strong. He always looks like he's got a bit of a goal in him as well from set pieces. But talk to me about Morris, because he's a player that, when I watch you, he looks quite exciting. He looks really dynamic. He's got 3 goals this season. So talk to me about him and Adebayo.
Just for me, like a partnership made in heaven. Like I love the 2 of them together. Like it worked so well in the Championship. It was our first season, sort of. You think we had 2 playoff campaigns in the Championship? That first playoff campaign where we got knocked out by Huddersfield, Eli was the main dog. Like he was nearly 20 goals in the season, assists galore, quality player. And then you brought on Morris alongside him, and it was incredible. Eli didn't get as many goals, but he still became a really good talisman and a good partner for Morris to shine and get 20 plus goals in that season. I want to see that partnership continue this year. Eli's a nuisance. All you have to do is look at the highlights of when he came on against Forest on the weekend. Unbelievable player. And I sort of, on our podcast, when we reviewed the Forest game, I discussed him as our little own jobber, big game player. Just has the mentality of when we need something or we need someone and we need a big moment, he's the man that will come in clutch and just deliver it. And if you have that alongside a player like Morris, who is sort of, he's going to get 10, 15 goals, recipe for success, you'd like to assume.
And you've got a marvellous player in the middle from Aston Villa. How's he been? Because at Villa, Villa fans really rated him the first sort of season that he was here. Really good player, very underrated. He loved to get stuck in, but he was always sort of a little bit wasteful when he had to make that decision to play a pass forward, and he'd sometimes get caught. So how's he been for you guys in the Premier League this season?
I'd say he's cool, calm and collected. Like he's just does the simple things, but that's all he needs to do because he plays alongside good midfield players, whether it be Pelly, Barkley, Lokonga till he got injured. It was one of those where he plays alongside someone who can do that other rest, play the balls forward, be a bit more direct. We need Nakamba to just be that man that brings a good presence in the midfield, holds his position. He can win a ball, win a tackle, but don't ever overcomplicate it. And I think that's been the story of when we obviously had him on loan from you at first. That was how he was. From January, it took this midfield, which was good. It was compact and was almost dynamic in places. But we just needed that man to sit in front of the centre arse and just provide a bit of calmness. And that it revolutionised our campaign last year, as everyone saw. Whereas this season now, we need that man to stay cool, calm and collected to stop players from being erratic and not necessarily stop them from taking risks, because you still need that element of that. That's what separates us from other teams and will separate us from other teams. But it's just sort of bringing that guy that when things are a bit erratic, if the ball comes to him, it's like, right, calm it, relax, recycle, go again in that sense. So from that standpoint, first name on the team sheet, in my opinion.
Brilliant stuff. So how are you feeling then? Do you think you can survive this season? Can Luton Town sort of go against the odds, really? Because pretty much everybody has written Luton off. I mean, when we did our season predictions, we all said Luton would finish bottom. But I actually don't think you're going to finish bottom at all now, because I think Sheffield United are the worst team in the league. And I can't see them getting near 20 points whatsoever, whereas Luton, I think I can, So what are you thinking then?
I have always stuck by 17th from the very start, and even now, nothing has changed that standpoint until I it physically isn't mathematically possible,
Mhm.
right? I firmly believe, not just from watching last season, but even watching now, obviously having the benefit of 8-9 games, there will be 3 teams that are worse than us. You look at the game on Saturday, 2-0 down against Forest. I personally don't believe Forest are very good watching
Yeah.
them, and it was kind of annoying to watch us make. Essentially, we made them look better than what I think they are. The fact that Cooper was sort of suggesting that's the best they've played this season, and I was like, against us, okay, fine, if that helps. But then if that's the best you've played, and then you capitulated in 15 minutes, and we've got a draw out of it, I'd be pretty concerned if my manager's coming out and saying that. I had Palace in my bottom 3, which was a rogue choice from a lot of people. But then you look at, like you said, Sheffield United look shocking at the moment. Burnley, they'll stay up, but at the moment, don't look very convincing. I know they've beaten us, so if any Burnley fan comes to my head, whatever. You've then got Brentford, who don't have a main man necessarily. Morpay, fine. But Tony, I don't think will come back in January. They're not going to have an amazing season. Again, I don't think, I'll be shocked if they finished 18th, but they're going to be in and amongst it, as it were. Everton, again, as always, in and amongst it. We've beaten them. They're nothing promising whatsoever. So I firmly believe that come the end of the year and the end of the season, more so, there's going to be 3 teams worse than us. And to think people thought that we beat Derby's record, but currently you've got a Sheffield United who are sat on 1 point.
Yeah, definitely. So let's turn our attention then to the weekend. What are your thoughts so far this season on Aston Villa?
Unbelievable. Like, you sort of had really good success last year, and obviously a lot of people didn't really expect you to be that good, which is fair. But then you've actually kind of even still gone a level up from that, which has been impressive to watch. I mean, you're 5th at the moment, which is really, really good. I backed you to sort of do well in Europe, and I think that's been a little bit of a transition period for you lot, sort of back in Europe, as it were, doing the Thursday night travels and all that stuff. But I think you'll get through the groups. I think you'll do well in the Conference League. I don't think there's anyone in the Conference League as a whole that looks as scary, if I'm honest. And if you're sort of getting to the quarterfinals, semi-finals, if you're Unai Emery, you probably sacrifice finishing 6th and end up finishing 9th for the sake of getting to the final of a conference final. You look at West Ham's success last year. If they're more than good enough to get that far, I think so are you. You've signed well. Moussa Diaby from Leverkusen. I've sort of kept tabs on Leverkusen as a whole. Unbelievable player and an unbelievable signing. And he's played really well for you so far this year. So to be honest, the only thing I can see from you lot is just being better than last year and sort of just taking that logical next step up, as it were.
Yeah, spot on, to be fair. Thank you. So let's talk about the game then on Sunday. What can Villa fans expect from Luton Town coming to Villa Park? How's the setup going to be? Because you're away, your points so far, you've got 4 points away from home and only a point at home. So you're pretty dangerous away from home, and your points are coming away from home at the minute, really.
Yeah.
So what can we expect? Because the squad's gonna be absolutely buzzing, full of confidence after the result that you've just had. So yeah, what can we expect?
I think a lot of people expect these teams that are down the bottom to sort of roll over and give you points. And I got asked by a Tottenham fan on their podcast a couple of weeks ago, "Oh, are you just going to put 10 men behind the ball?" And I was like, "No, like, not at all. It's just not how we roll, like, whatsoever." And we know that that style of football is going to mean that we can see goals. It's just how it is. But at the end of the day, we're not going to sacrifice our sort of style of play or our ethos, as it were, just so we can stick 10 men behind the ball and still lose 2-0. Like, it's a pointless activity to me and a pointless activity to anyone, really, for that matter. So we're still going to try and be direct, I think, probably more than normal, as if we were at home. But like you said, we've been picking up points away from home. It'll be interesting to see. We'll probably shift from a 5 back into a 4, depending on game state. More than likely, second half, you'd see a 4 at the back. But expect us. It'll be a lot of wing play. It'll be a lot of balls up to Morris, looking for flick-ons. So, like I said, direct, but using wingers where we can.
Yeah, it's as a Villa fan, this feels like a strange game, really, because we're going for 12 Premier League wins at home in a row. And no disrespect to Luton, but as a Villa fan, how it would normally go, the script is that we lose to Luton at home. So, it's a difficult game, and we're in like great form at home. We've won 11 in a row in the league, and this does feel like a big game for Villa, because if we win this, we're pretty much going to be near top 3, I think. So, and then we're playing in Europe as well. So that's going to be our record after Europe's pretty decent as well. So I don't think we've lost since we've played in Europe to the league. So I imagine it's going to be a difficult game. But I think you're doing fantastically well, and I think for football fans that are outside of like the big six, they love Luton. They like Luton, but those tops, they don't get it, do they? They don't get the journey. They don't get what it's like to support a club that's probably been out of the Premier League. And it's just great to see those football stories as football fans, because as football fans, you look at like the Saudi League and you see the money, but they don't have like a Luton from the 5th tier going up the ladder into like the Premier. They don't have that, and that's the beauty of English football, that there's that pyramid, isn't there?
Yes, this is the thing, and I've sort of had this conversation actually quite a lot, whether it's with like people who support the local team near to me or Chelsea's, United's, whatever. And I was like, I always find it hard to sympathise with like a Man United, a Man City, a Liverpool fan who tell me a time where they've actually had genuine struggle in your footballing life, right? Because at no point, if you're a City fan of my age, likelihood is you probably started supporting them just before the money. Or if you're a United fan, you're used to winning fucking everything. Whereas for us, as a kid we got relegated to the conference when I started secondary school, right? So imagine going into secondary school and being like, I'm a Luton fan. You're a non-league football team, and like my local team, Swindon, right? So Swindon fans at the time, they're in League One, and most of them support Arsenal, support Chelsea, support Man United as well, because they're 2-teamers. Love it. And it's just like, but they have nothing to there's nothing to latch onto. There's no emotion to it. It's just, I'll sit in front of the TV, I'll watch Chelsea. Oh, we lost. Okay. You get over it and you just watch the game the next week. Whereas like our sort of journey's had a lot more jeopardy. We've lost playoff games. We've won playoff finals. Like, I can't put into enough words sometimes the roller coaster and the journey we've been on. Like that sort of Wembley moment we had of winning the playoffs. I saw it at 24 years old. I've just turned 25. I always said we'd be in the Prem at some point in my lifetime, but before I turned 30 years old is insanity. Like, I sat there for a good 5 minutes just looking around and not actually really celebrating and just kind of taking it in for like I can't believe this has actually happened and is happening in front of my eyes, and something that I've seen so quickly, like to go from non-league football to Premier League football in 10 years. You'll find it hard pressed to find a team that does it that quick in a very long time. And the fact that we've done it without being this Wrexham who's like a media darling and will have loads of money backing them, or to just be a bigger team who has 35,000 selling out their ground. We are Luton Town, and we have 10,000 selling out our ground every week. Like, we are, in the eyes of media, in the eyes of this big six party, we are not meant to be in the Premier League. So it is incredible that we get to disrupt this Premier League party, whether it's for 1 year or the next 5 or 10. It's going to be a bloody dream regardless.
Yeah, it's amazing, to be fair. And then finally, just touching on that playoff final, because we went up through the playoff final as well. And like you when you were talking about like after the game and you're just looking round, the magnitude of that game is absolutely huge, isn't it? Because if you lose that game, you've then got to go through 46 more games the next season, and potentially you might be nowhere near it. So that final is just, I can't imagine, even for you guys, like how big that must have been, because, for you guys that have known what was behind this journey and the story, it's just absolutely massive. So fair play to you. So good luck for the rest of the season. Hopefully not on Sunday, but there we go. So it's been great chatting to you. I'll put the description to your channel in the description down below as well. And then hopefully we'll speak to you next year and you're comfortable.
Yeah, I hope so too, mate. Fingers crossed.
Cool.
Thank
See you
you
later,
very
mate.
much.